Hey guys, Stephanie here with the Aeroponic Tower channel, and today I thought I would take you along sort of vlog style and show you how I'm going to harvest a ton of food off of my towers. I have a lot of fruit that's ready to be harvested, fruits and vegetables, and I started seeds a couple of weeks ago. It's been 2 weeks now with you guys on another video, and a lot of those seedlings are almost ready to go into the tower. So I really want to evaluate what needs to come out, what needs to be eaten over the next week, and start thinking about replacing some of those seedlings. And I thought by taking you guys along vlog style, it would naturally answer a lot of the questions I get about tower gardening. I think one of the biggest hangups for people that I constantly hear questions about is a tower can look really amazing and everything can be doing really great, and then all of a sudden your plants can peak and start to go downhill, and that confuses a lot of people if you're new to gardening. Like, what do you do next, or what does that look like? And you also want to be harvesting your fruit and vegetables off your plants when they are at their peak maturity. Otherwise, it also starts to put a lot of strain on the plants because they're putting all their energy into making that seed, so it carries on the genetics of that plant. And a green bean, for example, will continue to grow from a tasty, tender green bean into a really thick, unedible green bean if it's left on the plant, and that's because the plant needs that green bean to get to that big, unedible, really fibrous, hard size in order to have seeds that are going to be mature enough to reproduce into a different plant. But what it's going to do is put all its energy into that vegetable, into that green bean, and the plant itself is going to start to die. So I have a lot of food on these towers that needs to come off. It's top priority today. I've put it off long enough, so come along, let's do a huge harvest. I don't even really know what's on here. I've been kind of neglectful because it's hot and I don't like to garden when it's hot, so I've been doing other fun things I like to do. So I came through today and did a little peek and was kind of blown away at how much food we need to harvest today. So what I'm doing right now is I'm picking off some leaves from the tomatoes that are showing a little disease or a little sign of stress. And we've had an enormous amount of rain. It's actually going to rain again. That's why I want to get these tomatoes harvested. And I don't know if you guys can see that, but there are some spots on some of the greens. And so I did a YouTube all about the tomato varieties I grow and how these are really disease resistant and pest resistant, and they're dwarf varieties. So it allows me to grow 21 different varieties of tomatoes on my towers because they're dwarf plants and don't get super cumbersome in size. But every tomato eventually is going to get some disease and kind of burn out. Either it's going to get too cold for it, or usually it's disease that gets them. And being in the rainforest, we've had some huge rains come in, and then days after where it just stays kind of rainforesty. We're on a mountain and there's been clouds pretty much every morning. We're sitting in fog until about 10:30, 11 before it burns off. And that's just a lot of moisture for a tomato to handle. They're not terrible. There's not a lot, but there is a little bit. So I'm just gonna cut some of those off as I go, and I'm dropping them into a bucket. Chickens cannot eat tomato leaves. They're poisonous to chickens, so just be mindful of that. So these I need to compost, and I'll just actually toss them over into the forest. And before I get harvesting, I'm gonna take this kale out. I wanna put something else in its spot. I've been meaning to take this out for a long time. It's way overgrown. I've got lots of greens I can eat for a salad this week, but it has 4 different stalks and we've been eating off of it for months. And I like to keep my food nice and young on the towers. So I'm gonna go ahead and harvest this, and I'll show you guys how tricky it can be sometimes. First, I'm gonna start by cutting some of the stems. And this is my Hori Hori knife. It's the only thing I really need to garden with. All right, so here you can see how long the stem is because we've been eating off of these. I'm gonna throw away any leaves. We'll go to the chickens that just are not so desirable looking, and the rest I'll eat. And most of this, you can see, it's just been picked to death because I've just eaten off of this a ton. So we'll give that to the chickens. What I'm trying to do is, these are some leeks. I would like them to perk back up. They've been a little shaded. I've got a cantaloupe here, not doing super great, so I want to see if we can't get that to take off. And actually I see that this stem split, so that might be why it's having a problem. And this tower overall is just a little messy on the bottom. I've got a squash on one side, and I really want to use this space to grow some arugula or some sort of fast turnover green underneath this shade canopy, and really just get these roots out, because this is 4 kale seeds. Looks like I like to do 2 typically, but it looks like 4 were in here. They've been in here a really long time, and it's just time. All right, and what's happened here is the stalk of this got so big. I need a stool. That it pushed the net pot back, and it's kind of broken. So you have to maneuver that out. The roots typically aren't super hard to get out. It's letting these stalks get too big that caused the problem, which is why I say don't keep it in there too long. But of course this summer I broke a lot of those rules. And what I'm doing here is taking the Hori Hori knife and just sliding it into the grow port and trying to push it down the net pot that's stuck inside the grow port. Okay, so I got the net pot released from in there, and at this point we're just gonna tug and move side to side. Tug, side to side. And what that's doing is pulling the kale roots away from these other roots that belong to something else, and we'll shove those back in there. Now I want to cover that grow port, so what you can do is, if the roots aren't too root bound, you can go ahead and just pop the roots off. Those go in the compost pile. And there we go. We have our net pot and it's ready to go back in. I will find a plant. Here's some starts actually, and I know I said I was going to do some arugula, but I actually have some turnips and some mustards here. And I think, actually this is a purple kale, and I want to make sure if I'm taking out a kale that I'm putting another one in. So I'm going to go ahead and put this one in. It's looking leggy. It's been out in the rain and just been kind of traumatized. So this one will be happy to have a new place to grow. And look at that gorgeous kale that we get to have for dinner tomorrow. So now I'm just looking for any damaged leaves from the storm that we got hit really hard with. We got hit by a really hard storm, and it just did it really weighed these towers down and put a lot of pressure on them. So I am seeing a lot more spots than I'd like to. It just means the plants are stressed. They've been exposed to too much water. When it's raining here, it is raining so hard that I'm afraid everything on the towers are just gonna fall down from the weight. And so I'm seeing some ramifications of all that rain, for sure. We've got some green beans hidden in here. But the fruit itself is absolutely perfect. And by taking off a lot of these ripe, these are almost ripe, they're really, really close. It's gonna take some pressure off this plant as well so that it can focus its energy into the other fruit that hasn't ripened yet and just try and get its health back. So I really wanna take the pressure off a lot of my plants by doing a huge harvest today. And that was really one of my main intents. This one's super fun. These are on the vine still. This one's not ready and it doesn't have that chemical that allows them to change color, so I probably just use that one as a green tomato, because I do actually really love green tomatoes in my salsa. But how fun is that? There's a jalapeno pepper in here. All right, here's a jalapeno pepper, and can you see what a difference already? Just getting a couple of leaves and doing a harvest and taking out some things that are a little bit too mature already opens this tower up tremendously, which will be great. And it'll just take some of this disease pressure off, and it'll allow the jalapeno to be a little bit more of its own shining star on this tower. So anything that doesn't look super healthy, I'm cutting off. And I'm going to tie this one up later just to here. But for right now, it's got a string on it actually. Here we go. We're going to take, there's a pepper plant under this. I'm going to let that pepper plant have a little bit more space, and I'm just going to tie this up with some, there's some twine in here already. And we will, just to make sure that this doesn't break off. It's actually fine if your tomatoes sort of drape down towards the ground. All right, this is off one tower so far, and let's head over to another one. It's gonna get dark fast. I need to come back through here and do some heavy pruning, but what I wanted to show you guys is how important it is to get your ripe fruit off, get your mature plants off, and then start to determine, like, this is a pepper right here, and what'll happen with your towers is things will get so huge that it'll start to shade out other plants you have in there. So we want to kind of bring those back to life because the peppers still have a long way to go. The tomatoes may burn out and get disease and need to come out, but we don't want to lose our peppers. Let me see if I can find, so this pepper plant here, okay, so this is a younger one and it starts towards there, so it's doing fine and getting enough sun. I'm going to replace the green beans on this tower, but not today because I don't want a bunch of open grow ports if rain's coming. Let's head over to the other tower before it gets too dark and keep harvesting. This tower right here needs some attention too. The kale that needs to be harvested. Like I mentioned, I let some of these go too long. I'm going to do that tomorrow so I can put something in its spot and make some beautiful kale salad that I've been craving. But for right now, I'm going to take off the bad leaves that should go to the chickens. And actually, that's not a bad leaf. Some of these are still great. And I will tell you, anything you grow on the top of your towers is going to get massive. They love it up there. This tower has so many peppers, and I really need to thin out the shishitos. So let's do that now. And I could harvest every pepper. I don't have that kind of time tonight, and I don't want to have to preserve a lot of these. So it's okay to take the pressure off your plants and not harvest everything, even though these technically could all come off. I've got some that are still flowering and some that are still at baby phase. And I don't want to take those off, but I do want to get a lot of the fruiting pressure off of this plant to see if we can't extend its production a little bit longer. There's a green bean down here that can come out. Matter of fact, I'm going to do that now. I'm gonna pop in some mystery greens. I think this is a turnip. And it'd be really lovely to have a turnip. This is marigold. I will never grow this again. This is coming out. It gets super root bound, like really, really heavy roots. And I thought it would be neat to have flowers in my towers, but I honestly don't care about flowers. I care about the food. So we'll do another one of these turnips. Or mystery greens. I think these are mustards. They're looking rough, but this will pop right back. Don't fret if your starts look like mine, highly abused from being stuck out in torrential rainfall. These are the clips, and they're just another great option, easier to get in and out over the net pots. Now that's not going to get a lot of sun there, so let me see if I can free up some peppers on this side. This is actually a different variety of pepper. That is a Mexican pepper. Forget what that one's called. I'll post it. You guys know I'm terrible with names. So we're just gonna free up as much as we can of these shishito pepper plants. Now when I pull this kale out, this tower is going to get a lot more sun, and I'm going to put some new lettuce up to here because I want some really big heads of lettuce to grow really fast while it's warm still. And that's actually good for this tower because some of these things like these peppers will really start to take off now that I've removed. There was giant kale like this over here shading out this pepper, and it wasn't fruiting a lot. It just now started fruiting once I removed that kale. So that's kind of what you want to be thinking of. It's okay that it wasn't fruiting, but now it's time for this pepper to have its moment. Definitely take off anything red. Red means ripe. These peppers change flavor when they're red. I like them for making homemade pepper sauce. Oh, peppers everywhere. All right, down here I have another tomato. It's just growing on the ground. I see a little disease. I'm not super worried about it. These tomatoes are gonna start to burn out as we move into fall anyway. I have some younger ones that are just starting to fruit that might be okay. And I have some new starts of tomatoes that are gonna go into the garage. And so I'm not worried about the tomatoes kind of going through a disease state. I'm more worried that I stay on top of pruning and getting rid of leaves and things so that these are not too much to bear. It's not too much work to try and come in here and harvest. That tower I just did already looks 10 times better, and if it wasn't gonna get dark soon, I would actually spend a little bit more time on each tower. But I want to give you guys an idea of, you know, what's growing, what needs to be harvested, and kind of go through each tower, or as many as I can. And this just makes it easier. If you break your tower chores up, instead of having to go out into a hot, sweaty soil garden full of bugs right now, because it is hot and muggy, and get all dirty, I can break this up into a few days, which is what I'm gonna do. Do some harvest, figure out what I'm gonna do with all this food, come back out, prune some of the leaves. Tomorrow I'll take the kale. That'll be a huge relief when this kale's gone, because it's doing so much, it's causing so much shading on these. And just some of those easy chores, and I get to put a new plant in there that's gonna grow. A lettuce is gonna grow in like 5 weeks. I'm gonna be able to harvest a gorgeous lettuce, and all these peppers are gonna continue to thrive once I get some more sunlight on them. So that's what I'm doing right now. Just kind of little maintenance on your towers will go a long way. All right, and here's one thing I didn't catch. This is completely dry. So something on the other side of the tower is pulling this, and it didn't get any water to this plant. It's probably these kale, they're so gigantic. So it's a good thing we're getting rid of these because I lost a celery in that. And this one's pretty far gone. It was buried in there, so I couldn't tell. Otherwise, I would try and bring it back to life, but we'll give that one to the chickens. I have another celery right here, doing amazing. And matter of fact, I'm gonna go ahead and cut these kale off. Just because I think it's the kale that's causing that water problem. This is probably 3 pounds of kale. It's so gigantic. And I've eaten off of these a bunch, and they just keep regrowing. So I'm gonna add those to my menu tomorrow and to my juice, because I need the bulk juice. So these roots are too big for me to get out at this point. There's actually 2 plants I removed the other day on the other side that are the same. So I'm gonna have to pop this top and take them off that way. Not the end of the world, but another reason why you don't want to let your plants get super big, because it just makes it harder to manage. Had I harvested these a month ago, I could have pulled them out nicely. They'd have less bug wear on them, less, you know, they'd be a little less beaten up, but it is what it is. So tomorrow I will come out here, remove those, add new plants to the top here, and make sure that this pepper is tied up so that it doesn't fall over, because the weight of peppers can cause them to fall over and break. But it's looking good in here. I'm gonna trellis this one up to here. All right, and I need a lot of starts. The more I look, I want to harvest this celery to juice. It's ready. I need to make sure we have enough starts. I did a lot of starts, but it is definitely time to get a lot of things off this tower and into our stomachs. So this tomato has taken off and is kind of broken at the stem from the rain, and it's tomatoes break very easily. You have to be super careful. It's kind of fallen into this pepper plant. So I think what I'm gonna do, when a tomato falls like that and bends, it'll be fine. This actually happened a few days ago and it's still fine. So I think at this point I'm just gonna leave it. This is where having a cage on here would be ideal, but I don't have one on here. Here we have some teeny tiny little, I think these are called egg drop eggplant. I don't love this variety because it actually doesn't produce a lot of fruit. The Patio Baby produces a ton of small eggplant. This one does not, but I thought I'd grow it for fun anyway. So there's one more whole side of shishito peppers I want to try and manage. We're getting dark so fast. I really want to show you guys the last tomato harvest. First I'm going to get off these peppers. The eggplant are getting tired. The leaves are starting to get stressed. They're getting excessive heat every day, and they don't love that. This is just a little sweet bell pepper. I believe it's a pimento pepper, but I'm not 100% sure. We have bell peppers in here, so much food. Here's some new green bean starts. These are small, but they're actually ripe as they start to change colors. This is a white eggplant. Those just got super small. I didn't thin some of them, and sometimes when you have that many on one branch, they just end up smaller, which I actually like small eggplant because it's hard to eat so much giant eggplant. Patio Baby. And I don't know if these are going to continue to fruit or if they're just going to burn out. Here we have jumbo jalapenos, my favorite pepper in the world. Let's get some weight off of this one. I guess I say jumbo, they're not that jumbo. They're large. And my hope is that this patio baby will kind of get a second flush and start to fruit again, but I'm not sure. In the meantime, it has a lot of young fruit on it that still needs to ripen, and I have been planting enough seedlings. I'm actually planting seedlings once a week right now to make sure that as all of these summer plants start to burn out, that I have something to take their place. You never want to get caught where your plants are done and there's nothing to go in the spot. So let's see. Squash has been struggling. I'm just trying to keep it alive at this point, but I'm going to start new squash seeds for the fall. And as soon as those are ready, I'm probably going to rip 80% of my squash out and just start over. When it gets this hot and the pest pressure is really high and there's this much rain, they just aren't happy and they stop fruiting. And I don't like to keep plants in the tower if they're not producing food, because I could toss in some lettuce and that'll grow really fast and give us something to eat while we wait for the new pepper plants to get big enough to fruit. This is a black beauty, and I did notice that all the rain caused a little split in it, so these can typically get bigger, but I'm gonna go ahead and harvest that. I don't like how heavy this plant is over here, but I also don't want that much eggplant in my house right now. And I did something really stupid and did the tomatoes first and then put all this heavy food on it. Look at our harvest. It's easily 10 pounds. I can barely hold it up. It's huge. But I don't want to smush all my tomatoes, so I'm going to go get another basket. As you can tell, once again, we meet in the dark. My videos all seem to end up being in the dark lately. It's just so hot. So I'm going to finish up with this tower, and I will feel really accomplished having done what I've done tonight. 30 minutes, all this food, and it just lightens the burden, so I don't feel so much pressure out here. So when I come out here, it's enjoyable, and I'm not feeling the burden of things that are too big and too overgrown. Sometimes if you just take it one plant at a time, that can make all the difference. Like I have a kale in here that needs to come out, like that other one, the lacinato kale. I don't have the bandwidth for that tonight, so I'm not going to worry about that one. I got the other one done, and tomorrow I can come out and work on this one. It's so good. I'm getting that tomato tar fingers. There's a green bean in here that's not too happy. Oh yeah. See what happened? Forgot there was a green bean, and these are what I was talking about, where they start to get too big. And now the green bean plant is dying because it feels like it's accomplished its goal and made seeds. Ow! So many tomatoes in here. I just love the yellow tomatoes. So this green bean, I'll worry about taking that out cleaning off some leaves tomorrow. Check that one out. That's a Cherokee purple, or some sort of purple tomato. Oh, so gorgeous. There's some real bad leaves down here. And I have more baskets in my house from the last few days of harvesting as well. Here's our tomatoes, some large green beans. I'll actually use those in a stir fry. We like the larger, crunchier ones in a stir fry. But tons of tomatoes. We'll have to make some salsas or things with these. And I will make red sauce and just cook those down and just use that for the next couple of weeks. We can have a few dinners with that. Here we've got tons of eggplants. Peppers, we can make pepper sauce. I make these as a meal, a shishito, by blistering them. I like to stuff them and fry them in sourdough. Eggplant, I make a lot of baba ganoush with that, or we just roast them, all different kinds. This one's a good one to make, like an eggplant parmesan with our red sauce, because it's a standard size. And just a beautiful harvest. I still have tons of food. I have baby plants that are starting to take off. I have towers, like I mentioned, that need a little bit of work. And I hope this video just kind of paints the picture of how to manage plants as they start to get into these peak times. Harvest the food. That's the first thing, the first way to take the stress off the plant. Prune them back. That's another. Get rid of anything that doesn't look like it's 100% thriving. You know, we don't want to admit to loss, but sometimes you plant something in a bad spot, it doesn't get enough light. I threw away a green bean that was young and didn't really produce any green beans for us because it just wasn't in an optimal spot, and that's okay too. You know, cut our losses, get a new plant in that spot quickly. I'm going to show you guys my starts that I started with you guys on a different video, my seedlings, and that's the goal. Just grow the food, harvest it at its peak. Don't do what I did and let your kale get so big that now you have to take part of the tower apart to get the roots out, because that creates more work, and more work is stress. And when we're hot and stressed in the garden, we don't want to garden, or I don't want to at least. I try to really eliminate that by keeping everything young and easy and manageable. And with 9 towers, my workload is obviously a lot more than someone who has 1 or 3. But I also want to show you, those of you who are doing what I'm doing and using these as a way to homestead, just how to make that possible and how to take off little bites. So whether you have 1 tower or 9 like me, you can chip away at the chores a little bit at a time. You don't have to spend 6 hours in the hot sun with this kind of garden, which is what I really appreciate. Tomorrow, I'll hone in on 1 tower. I'll give it 30 minutes of my attention. I'll get those roots out that need to come out, those kale roots, and I'll put my new starts in, and in 30 minutes, that tower will be up and running without much burden or stress on me. So, let me show you guys my seedlings. Here's my little seed starting setup. I see one problem. Things are thirsty. I haven't checked on these in a couple of days. And a few of these that are in the lids, I just ran out of the little trays. It's gonna drip on the floor. And these were sitting on the floor and they still sprouted. So I know seed starting can be complicated, but also don't give up on it. Once it clicks, you'll know like where you can push the limits with things and where you have to be a little bit more tender. These are all onions. Coming up great. Here we have our peas and they are ready to go into the tower. This is cauliflower. And it looks like we have all of them but one came up. So what I do in that situation, and one of them's kind of fallen over, what I'll do in that situation is plant a new seedling in there. So I'll give it another couple of days. When these start to get true leaves, I'll just take those outside to get real sun, or I may leave them under the grow light this time of year, and pop in a new seed to anything that has poor germination. But overall, these are doing really well. Up here, this is a lot of my lettuce and things. And this tray here is not showing great germination, so I'm going to turn off the heat mat. These actually feel really warm. No, maybe not too bad. Lettuce is super finicky this time of year to start, no matter what I try. So I'm going to turn that off, and hopefully I see some sprouting. Hopefully that will help some of those last ones. I'm actually going to turn off the lights too. And just try a colder temperature, no light germination rate. Some things like light, some things don't. Some things like cool, some things like warm. And I don't have enough of this setup to really give everything its ideal. So I try to find that happy medium where most things will come up. Here's my cucumbers. Everything on here is doing pretty good. There's some things that haven't sprouted yet, so we'll give those a little bit more time. You don't want them sitting in water, but you want the rock wool completely moist. The onions are doing really good. So this tray I'm the most concerned about because this was a lot of greens and lettuce. And I'm not seeing a lot of it come up. So what I'll probably do is see what happens over the next couple of days. Seed this and keep it with the dome on, but no heat mat and no light, and see if that doesn't boost our germination rate on some lettuce. Lettuce is super finicky and tricky during the summer. It's really, I can give it the exact conditions that I do in the winter. I don't know if it's the humidity, but for whatever reason, it just does not do great. There's some bok choys in here too, so we'll just keep an eye on this. I also don't love to start in big trays like this for this exact reason as well, because my germination rate seems to be lower when I start in these. So if you have germination struggles like me, don't give up. Thanks for watching, guys, and joining me on this gorgeous harvest evening. I will see you on the next video.